All right. I'd like to start off by saying Barak Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Chakodash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is, and that no man might buy or sell. And that's pretty much coming from the book of Revelation, the 13th chapter, about the mark of the beast. And we're going to talk about that a little bit today. Elder Apostle Tar posted this video here on the last video I did, and it's called "When You Weren't Looking, Billionaires Did This." And pretty much we know that this whole lockdown thing has been, if brothers have been paying attention, this whole lockdown thing has been it's been really a financial thing. The main thing is the New World Order, but it pretty much has been a financial thing, because that's really what they're trying to do. They're trying to, or they're not trying to, they're collapsing the economy of the world, because they want to introduce the mark of the beast, which is the microchip, and this is according to prophecy. And that prophecy will happen. And that's why it's important to know what the mark of the beast is, which we teach and we believe and we know through the spirit and power of Yahweh B'Shem Shai that it's the microchip. Now in this video, pretty much the woman was saying how all of this stuff is staged, which we've been saying. First you had the coronavirus, which was the lockdown, which was to destroy the middle class and also to destroy the small mom and pop businesses. Because if you look at it, like as she was saying in the video, you have the Amazon warehouses that stayed open, which is a giant corporation. You had the Walmarts that stayed open, which is a giant corporation. You had the Targets that stayed open, which is a large corporation, based off of that they were considered essential businesses. Now you had a lot of mom and pop stores that were essential businesses, but they told them they had to close, because the only essential businesses are the ones that they deem to be essential. You see? So everything else closed down. And what happened was that this caused people to have problems. Now you had the taxpayers, as they were saying in different places, taxpayers and people that were catching hell, helping to fund the employees of some of these individuals. So pretty much what it is a lockdown based off of the economy. Because first you had the coronavirus. They shut everything down, right? And then as soon as they started so-called reopening everything, what did you have? You had the so-called George Floyd situation, which caused riots, and the riots were in the news on a daily, just everywhere you turn, there was a riot here, a riot there, looting there, protests here. Now all of a sudden, you're not really hearing about that as much as we were 2 or 3 weeks ago. Now what's back in the news is the coronavirus thing again. Because they're slowly but surely saying, well, now we're going to have to reclose everything. Because out there in Texas, they reclosed the bars, and they put a lot of restrictions on people going out, because they're getting ready for that second wave. And they closed things down to set up all those 5G towers, but they also closed it down to collapse the economies of these young, smaller businesses. Because at the end of the day, they want to be the ones fully in control of everything. Because as we read in the book of Revelation 13 and 16, it says, and he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. And this mark is the mark of the beast, which is the microchip. Whether it's inserted in any part of the hand, the body, or the head. It says, and this is the point, and that no man might buy or sell. And this is the key. It's all about commerce. It's all about finance. It's a financial ploy that these devils are doing. Because if they can collapse, which they are doing, collapse the economy of the world, what's next? They have to find a solution to continue business, right? So what would be the solution to continue the business? Well, if you, at one point, back in the 1940s, 1944, I believe it was to be exact, you had the Bretton Woods agreement, which made the U.S. dollar the currency of the world. So all nations that traded had to do what? They had to convert their money over into dollars in order to be able to trade on this open market, because now the dollar is the dominant, currency, so to speak. So in this situation, once the dollars collapse, because that's what they're using to have everybody trading, what would be the next option? Well, the next option would be, eventually would be this microchip, which is the mark of the beast. And this is why everything is being transferred over to everything being electronic. I just went to Target yesterday, right? And I normally don't go through the checkouts where there's cashiers. I just go to the self checkout, And I went to the self checkout, and all of the self checkouts said no cash. They don't take any cash, and they're not giving back cash. So I had to get in the regular line with the cashier in order to cash out. So this is becoming a regular occurrence, where some places are not taking cash, period. So this is because of the thing is they want to put everything, make it all digital. And like I made a statement before, there was this place where I usually get gas, and there's this older man. He has to be like in his mid 60s, maybe a little older than that, and he's an Edomite. And every time they give him money, you see him licking his thumb, counting the money, licking his thumb. So he's not sick. So if this money was so contagious, how come this old man, who's an older man, how come he's not sick from licking his finger? He's putting his all those so-called germs in his mouth from that money. Well, how come he ain't sick? See? Because it's all bullshit. It's all about bringing the economy to its knees so that they can introduce this microchip, which is the mark of the beast. It says, and that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. So all of these nations are going to have to comply with this new monetary system, just like they did when they had to conform to the dollar being the world reserve currency back then, back in the 40s. All right, it says, here is wisdom. It says, let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is a number of a man, and his number is 666. And when you break this 666 down, chi psi stigma, the stigma in it goes into the insertion of something to pierce your skin, to insert something inside of the skin in order to be able to buy or sell, because at the end of the day, it's all about commerce. This is why you have debt, you have credit, you have liquid, you have the stock market. Everything revolves around what? It revolves around the money system. And that's what it's all about. And we read in the book of Habakkuk, the 2nd chapter, how these devils are greedy. They can never have enough. Even though they got the finances of the world, they got more than heart could wish, as the scriptures say. They still want more. They want that raw power over the people. And that is the final solution to everything. And that's why with these situations happening, they're constantly inserting different legislation into law to be able to cement their new world order. Habakkuk chapter 2 verse 4. Behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith. Because at the end of the day, this is what is going to count. The just living by faith. Because this devil, his soul is not upright in him. He ain't right. Period. He's not right. He's not going to do right. He's not trying to do right. He doesn't give a damn about doing right, because he was created to be the wicked. I was just watching the video Elder Pastor did. I watched like half of it, dealing with lading himself with thick clay, this thick debt. And there's a reason. See, Esau, when he does things, he doesn't do things just to be doing it. He's very calculative. Remember, the scriptures say that the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field. What they're doing with this monetary system is they knew that they can get the whole world, at their beck and call, because they would have the world in debt. And they understand about something called debt slavery, you know. And this is what's gonna, because they're about to call the debts in, you know. They're about to call their the debts in, because they're owed to them. All right, so here we got debt bondage, right? It says peonage, also known as debt slavery or bonded labor, is the pledge. And you heard Elder Apostle Tahar speak about the pledge, you know, in the definition of thick clay, which is ibatyat, right? It says of a person's services as security for the repayment for a debt or other obligation. So how do you become a debt slave or debt bondage? By using these debt-bearing notes that are worthless. And when you take them, you pretty much take that debt onto yourself. And what ties you or ties us into this debt is the birth certificates, the social security numbers, the driver's license, and any contract that ties us into the government. It says where the terms of the repayment are not clearly or reasonably stated, and that's why you see the debt clock going haywire. You know, let's get the debt clock. You see it going haywire. Why? Because it's unstable. You know, there's no stability to it, and they know that there's no way that they can pay this off. And they're saying that this thing is going up by the trillions. It would take a while before, but now it's going up to the trillions constantly. And pretty much this is just a fraction of what's on. It's a lot more than this. But just on this alone, people can't pay this. The amount of money that the average person has to pay back is it's crazy. You know, because you got federal tax revenue, that's a debt. You got different debts, you know, combined all together is impossible. Here you got another over here, U.S. total interest paid, U.S. total debt, you know. So this is insane, and these numbers are unstable. You know, you got debt held by foreign countries, debt held by the U.S. citizens, so on and so forth, the U.S. population, U.S. workforce, you know. So this is why this beast system, or this system of the mark of the beast, is going to be worldwide, because all people on the planet are indebted to America through that world reserve currency called the dollar, you know. And this is what we're seeing right now. So it says, and the person who is holding the debt and thus has some control over the laborer. And they have the control over the laborer. How do we know that? Well, what we got to do is go to the scriptures. Let's go to Proverbs chapter 22 and verse 7. It says, the rich ruleth over the poor. Who are the rich? The international bankers, the so-called top 5 rich men of America. Those are not the rich. Bill Gates and George, was it George Soros? Mark Zuckerberg, as I call him, and a couple others. They say the 5 richest men. They said within a couple of like 3 months or so, they increased their debt exponentially. I forgot how much by, you know. So this is all a financial ploy to bring in this new world order. So it says the rich ruleth over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender. So who is the borrower? The one that's borrowing. So now when you take a dollar is supposed to have some type of substance, because a dollar is a measurement, not money. And that's what people don't understand. A dollar is a measurement, not money, because in the Constitution it says that the money is to be expressed in dollars. You know? Just bear with me 1 second. I'm just trying to get something that Yeah, and so pretty much a dollar is pretty much a measurement. Yeah, they're not really giving me much. But pretty much a dollar is no different than an ounce, no different than a quart, no different than a half pound or pound. And that's all it is. So what is it a dollar of? A dollar of nothing. You know, I mean, Elder Pastor brought out how, you know, you have the petrodollar now. That's backed by the petrol. But back then, it was backed by what? By silver and gold. That's why you had silver notes, gold notes, silver certificates or gold certificates. And whatever denomination you had, you were able to go to a bank and get that amount of silver or gold or whatever it was when you turn in that dollar bill. That dollar bill was just a note saying that you had such and such in the bank. But now all it is just a debt. You know, because you can't take that dollar bill to the bank and get anything back for it. So you got a unit of measurement in your pocket. All of us, we have a unit of measurement in our pocket, which we cannot trade for any goods. And the only reason why it's used to buy and sell here is because that's the agreement that they have, the credibility or the credit or the belief of the people that it is money, and that's why they use it. All right, so it says the rich ruleth over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender. So we're in what's known as debt slavery, and the ones that hold the debt have control over the laborer, and that's why people have to work harder and harder and get less and less, because what's happening is the money is being devalued by the day. Every time you see them pumping trillions of dollars into the economic soup, you know, as what's my man's name? G. Edward Griffin said, it weakens the soup. You know, it's watering the soup down, and after a while, you got no more carrots in the soup. No, forget about meat. There's no more meat in the soup, no more carrots, no more potatoes. The flavor of the stock is gone because it's just water with some coloring in it. It said freedom is assumed on debt repayment. So now how is a debt repayment going to happen? Well, by the people becoming slaves. How was a debt or freedom from debt given in Egypt, ancient Egypt? The Egyptians had to sell themselves and their lands over to Joseph, to the Pharaoh, in order to receive what they needed. And guess what happened from that point on? From that point on, when they sold themselves into slavery under the Egyptian Pharaoh and their lands, they had to give a 5% increase every year of their goods. So they pretty much were in debt bondage or debt slavery. Yep, the brother put fiat currency or Federal Reserve notes. And there was another, the belief, there was another one, something that the brother put up here. Let me see, who was it? See if I could find it. I can't remember. It was something that brother put. Oh, yeah, it was in the Apocrypha. That's right. Ecclesiasticus, I believe it was Ecclesiasticus 27. Yep. GMS Winnie Street Preacher. Ecclesiasticus 27:2. As a nail sticketh fast between the joining of the stones, so does sin stick close between buying and selling. Yeah, because when you do that, you're supposed to have substance. And everything in that substance is supposed to be equal. It's supposed to be balanced. When we go to Leviticus 19:35, it says, you shall do no unrighteousness in judgment in meat yard, meaning in measurement, in weight, or in measure. So you're not supposed to do any unjust, can't be unjust in these things. But the ones that are in power, that set up the Federal Reserve, they set up a system of money that is not really money, and the measurements, the meat yard and the weight of it is unjust. And that's why the Lord said through the mouth of Micah 6 and 10, And there are there yet the treasures of wickedness in the house of the wicked? Yeah, because these treasures that they have are wicked. That's what we read in James, the 5th chapter. Lord's where we may get that. You know, how the go to ye, now ye rich men. Because there's a penalty for what you've done. You have a payment, a penalty that you have to pay. Your thievery has gone unanswered, and you have to pay for that. It says, are there yet the treasures of wickedness in the house of the wicked? And the scant measure that is abominable. So a scant measure is abominable because the Lord said he loves a just balance and just weights. So if I'm selling you something and you're paying me, there should be a mutual agreement that we both are making out on. It shouldn't be if I sell you something and you pay me that when you leave you feel cheated, or vice versa. You know, it shouldn't be when you go to the store to buy something, or when you go somewhere and you exchange your hard-earned so-called money, and you leave, you feel cheated, because that happens sometimes. Because this is a scant measure. When we look up the word scant is the word razawan, which means leanness, scantness, wasting. And this dollar is wasting. That's why you have something called inflation. And that's why you have something called hyperinflation. You know? And that's, you know, that's it. Scantness of measure. And when we look up the word scant in the common dictionary, it says what? Barely sufficient or adequate. Provide grudgingly or in sufficient amount. See? Because someone is getting the shaft. And that's why we read in that sin sticketh close between buying and selling. Especially in this society where the dollar, the money system is so corrupt. You know, fiat money, or fiat funny money as they call it, which is so let it be, you know. And the belief of the people is what's keeping this dollar system up. And pretty much the military power of Esau, you know. So going back here, it says the services required to repay the debt may be undefined. And that's what it is, because how many people really know the history of the Federal Reserve and how it was set up and how that system is corrupt and how it's a central bank and how it's robbing people of the natural way through the so-called Constitution to set up their own money. They could do it through Congress. But the way these devils set it up, the international bankers, was where they had a central bank, which there was two prior to this one, and the other two got, after 20 years, their charter was up and they were not renewed. And that's why you had the War of 1812, because that was a banker's war. And pretty much all wars are banking wars, as Michael Rivera brought out. So the third central bank, they made it sound like it was a governmental entity, and that's why, you know, it says federal on it. But like some others say, is no more federal than Federal Express. Federal Express is not a federal government company. Neither is the Federal Reserve. They're independently owned, you know, or privately owned corporations. It says, and the services duration may be undefined. See, and everything is undefined, because if they were to define it, they won't be able to. You'll be like, well, there's nothing here that says I have to pay this or that. Like there were people going around asking these different Federal Reserve workers, where is the law that states that every American has to pay taxes? And there is none, because what happened, it went back to World War II. How World War II still determines your tax bill. So you are one of the 50 million Americans who must fill out an income tax return by March 15th. And this was to help fund the war. you must file on income tax return if your income is in 1944 was 500 or more. All right, and this was to help fund the war because they were running low on funds. So it says tax day, which is April 18th this year, not April 15th, is one occasion in which history offers little consolation as you tally up your withholding and deductions. It may not help to know that you're also paying into a system created to fund World War II. It says, when the modern income tax was introduced in 1913, it was constructed as a tax merely on the very top earners. It was essentially irrelevant to most Americans. Get your history fixed in one place, sign up, blah, 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 blah. That changed in 1942, shortly after Pearl Harbor. The entire nation was mobilizing for war and money was desperately needed. At the time, the idea of running a deficit was seen as disastrous, says Joseph J. Thorndike, author of their fair share. Taxing the rich in the age of FDR and director of the Tax History Project to pay for the war. Congress passed a new Revenue Act that nearly doubled the number of Americans who would have to pay income taxes. Time called it the biggest piece of machinery ever designed to separate dollars from citizens. It says, though the amount raised was important in the short run, it was the expansion in the number of people paying the fundamentally altered U.S. tax structure the middle class had pitched in before. Paying a tax on a purchase was seen as totally normal, but most people had never written a check to Uncle Sam. Now that link would be set in stone. Times coverage of that looming date was headlined the Ides of March 1943. This week the U.S. citizen faces a hard and stubborn fact of wartime living. The articles begin, the U.S. Treasury on March 15 will demand and get more money from more people than at any time in the history of the Republic. Going into tax day that year, about a decade before the big day moved to April, the government expected to receive 40 million returns from citizens, far more than 26 million that had been filed the year before. Citizens unaccustomed to paying up left their taxes for the last minute, which you reader, surely know nothing about, and Treasury Secretary Henry Morgenthau guessed that those late payers were waiting for some imaginary last-minute government reprieve. Still, there was reason to believe that the nation, if not exactly eager to pay, was ready to fork over the cash if the American citizen does come through. Time noted it will be more because of inherent patriotism than because of sound tax policy. I'm going to read this last paragraph. The patriotism, the normal imperative to at least sacrifice dollars while others sacrifice their lives, was enough to carry the Revenue Act through Congress, just as it had been carried taxes like the temporary tax imposed during the Civil War. See, temporary. That was supposed to be a temporary tax. I believe they call this the Liberty Tax of World War II. It says, but after World War II, the 1942 tax structure stuck around. See? There was a temporary, which I didn't know about, the temporary tax imposed during the Civil War. Then after the Civil War, it was dropped. And the same thing with World War II. This was supposed to be a temporary thing, but then it stuck. So that's why the way they're operating things is under fraud. Even under Republican administration like that of the Dwight Eisenhower, balancing the books was prioritized over cutting taxes, both because of the aisles were resigned to the fact. Thorndike says that the war sort of permanently expanded the size of American government, and there really was no going back all the way. See, so that's how these devils operate. You know, things are done on a voluntary way, and then eventually they impose it mandatorily. Going back to what? The debt slave. It says, thus allowing the person supposedly owed the debt to demand services indefinitely. Debt bondage can be passed on from generation to generation. And that's why they have in the U.S. debt clock total debt per family. You know, somewhere around here, so much. You know, and this is what they like. They like to have stuff all jumbled up like this to keep the people confused. You know, because if people really understood the money system, I forgot who said it, there'd be a revolution overnight. All right, so now let's go back to Micah. So the scant measure was Razawan, which means leanness, wasting. And that's why you see the dollar collapsing. What you're witnessing is the devaluing of the dollar, not prices going up. The prices that are going up is because the monetary system is being devalued. That's why it takes more dollars to pay for something that you pay for less maybe a few months ago or a year ago. That's what you hear people talking about. I remember when bread was 5 cents a loaf or 10 cents a loaf. You know, you can get a gallon of gas for 25 cents. You know, just things like that. Now you go there, in one place, you could get gas for a little over $2 if you're a member. But other places you go, you got to pay another 70 cents just for a gallon of gas. If you're not, if you're not a member of this other particular place, you have different places you could go. So Micah 6:10, are there yet the treasures of wickedness in the house of the wicked, and the scant measure that is abominable? So this scant measure is abomination, because the Lord said a just balance is his delight. Matter of fact, let's get there real quick. Let's go to Proverbs. I believe that's Proverbs 16:1 or 11:1. So let's try 11:1. Proverbs 11:1. A false balance is abomination to the Lord, but a just weight is his delight. And that's, and this is why one of the reasons Yahweh whooped the hell out of them people in the them jakes in the temple, because they were falsifying those balances so that they can make more money. And that's what these devils are doing today. All right. So going back to Micah 6:11, shall I count them pure with the wicked balances and with the bag of deceitful weights? So these dollar bills are nothing more than deceitful weights. But because people can use them to trade and buy stuff, they think it's real money. And that's why you have these simple celebrities out there showing big stacks of money, like that's like they're saying something with that. And tomorrow they can pass a bill where all those greenbacks are obsolete. What are you going to do then? The only thing you could do is use them for firewood, fire kindling. It says, for the rich men thereof are full of violence, and this is what they do. And they're going to get more violent as time progresses. There's going to be more violence out here. It says, and the inhabitants thereof have spoken lies, and their tongue is deceitful in their mouth. That's right. So, this says, therefore, Salakia, also will I make thee sick in smiting thee, in making thee desolate because of thy sins. Yeah, so the Most High says he's going to make them sick. And that's why we read here, Jeremiah 51:6, which is heavy. Flee out of the midst of Babylon and deliver every man his soul. Be not cut off in her iniquity, for this is the time of the Lord's vengeance. He will render unto her a recompense. And eventually, what's going to be the deliverance? Into the chariots. Come up hither. Because this place is destined for a great bonfire. It says, Babylon hath been a golden cup in the Lord's hand. And they have. And this fits no other nation but America, which is Babylon the Great, that made all the earth drunken. How did they make the whole earth drunken? Through her philosophies, through her religion, through her monetary system, so on and so forth, their belief system. It says the nations have drunken of her wine, because all of these nations have been partakers with America. Therefore the nations are mad, and these nations are bugged out of their mind, and they're also pissed off because they see how this devil is manipulating their country, and their resources. That's why, let's go back to Habakkuk 2. We'll come back. Habakkuk 2:5. Yea, also because he transgresseth by wine, he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home. That's why you see these devils all in every nation out there. Whenever there is a discovery of any type of natural resources in a country, you best believe America is not too far from being up in there. Oh, we're here for humanitarian aid. Yeah, you're in there for humanitarian aid, all right. You're in there to grab the resources of that, of that land. Who enlarges his desire as hell, and is as death, and cannot be satisfied, because no matter how much they have, they can't get enough. But what it is these international bankers using America to gather all those resources, because The top cut goes to them. See? But gathereth unto him all nations, there go your New World Order, and heapeth unto him all people, your New World Order. It says, shall not all these, meaning who? All these nations, shall not all these take up a parable against him, and a taunting proverb against him, and say, woe to him that increaseth that which is not his? How long? And that's why these nations are mad, as we're reading. And to him that ladeth himself in with thick clay, meaning they're in serious debt, heavy debt. And they got the whole world in this heavy debt. To bring in what? Debt bondage or debt slavery, to introduce the solution, which would be an everlasting slave being inserted with a microchip, whether it be the hand, the head, or wherever part of the body that is going to go in for whatever individual they may be, to create a perpetual slave. It says, and to him that ladeth himself with thick clay, going back to Jeremiah 51:8, Babylon is suddenly fallen and destroyed. How? For her, take balm for her pain, if so be she may be healed, because she can't be healed. We would have healed Babylon, but she is not healed. Forsake her, and let us go every one into his own country. And this is what some of these nations are starting to realize, that this place is finished, so they're leaving and going back to their countries. But they're still sending goods here to sell. For her judgment reaches unto heaven, and is lifted up even to the skies. And this is why the Most High is going to destroy this place. And they're using this situation to cause all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or on their foreheads, to be able to have more control over the world and over every thing that's sold or bought, because they want a piece of everything. And that no man might buy or sell, this is the key, no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. And that's why these nations, when the Lord brings a judgment upon Babylon, the great America, and destroys it, and there's nothing to heal this place, and this place is totally devastated, these nations are going to be crying. Revelation 18:11, and the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth their merchandise anymore. See? And this place is going to be long gone. And what other place can they go to and make money like they do here in America? Oh, maybe they sending stuff to the Vatican, right? Maybe the nations of the world are getting paid off of the Vatican. The Vatican is making all these nations wealthy, right? And if they destroy that, then all nations of the earth are going to be mad because they can't sell their wares anymore. You got to be kidding me, man. It says the merchandise of gold and silver and precious stones and of pearls and of fine linen and purple and silk and scarlet and iron wood and all manner of vessels of ivory and all manner of vessels of most precious wood and of brass and of iron and marble and cinnamon and odors and ointments and frankincense and wine and oil and fine flour and wheat and beasts and sheep and horses and chariots and slaves and souls of men. And this is the biggest place on the planet that is selling souls of men. People are selling their soul to make it. And you have slaves, whether it's sex slaves or slaves to work for people, whatever the case is. It says, and the truth that thy soul and the fruits that thy soul lusted after are departed from thee. And the things which were dainty and goodly are departed from thee, and thou shalt find them no more at all. Yeah, because it's not going to be that golden city anymore. You know, this is not going to be that golden city anymore. Oh man, I wish you would have left that up, brother. I was just about to read that comment, and the elder clipped it out. Okay. Yeah, because there it goes. America's God, gold, oil, drugs. That's right. I was just about to read that too, but I guess you probably wrote it a little different. But that's it. G-O-D. G, gold. O, oil. D, drugs. And this is the main thing that these devils make money off of. So make no mistake, when you have them have the so-called war on drugs, it's not no war on drugs. That's an appearance of a drug on war, on a war on drugs. So that it can seem like they're doing something about it, but they're not, because that's a big money maker. Why the fuck you think they were in Afghanistan for those poppy seeds? What do you think those poppy seeds do? Those are opiates. Why do you think they were in, what was it, Vietnam and them other different Korean conflict and all that, they were in there for some resource. You know, because they're trying to bring everybody under a new world order. And after this, I got to roll out. I got to roll out the camp. This is First Maccabee 1:41. Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people. And this is not a new idea. And everyone should leave his laws, and that's all the nations, so they can receive what? A mark, which is the microchip. So all heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king. Now this goes back to the Greek Empire, but if we fast forward this to today, this is dealing with the new world order. It says, yea, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion. And you have a lot of Israelites that are down with this. Because remember, this is a religion for these devils. This money and all that, this is a religion. And sacrifice unto idols and profane the Sabbath. Yeah, because that was back then, and today they do the same thing. How do they sacrifice to idols? By partaking in these filthy, wicked acts. You know, that these nations are involved in. Especially Esau. For the king had sent letters by messengers unto Jerusalem and the cities of Judah, that they should follow the strange laws of the land, and forbid burnt offerings and sacrifice and drink offerings in the temple, that they should profane the Sabbath and festival days, and pollute the sanctuary and the holy temple and the holy people, set up altars and groves and chapels of idols, and sacrifice swine's flesh and unclean beasts. And they do this today in a different manner, by bowing down to Esau and his gods. You know, so with that, pretty much this has been and that no man might buy or sell. This is the new world order that they're pushing. The ultimate part of that new world order would be to implement everyone with the microchip, which is the mark of the beast, and then by that they'll feel that they have everything cemented. And that's why they said when they're about to fill their belly, the Most High shall pour his wrath upon them. So with that, I pray that you brothers have been edified. Until the next time I say, Shalom. Oh man, I wish you would have left that up, brother. I was just about to read that comment, and the elder clipped it out. Okay. Yeah, cause there it goes. America's God, gold, oil, drugs. That's right. I was just about to read that too, but I guess you probably wrote it a little different. But that's it. G-O-D. G, gold, O,